I recently discovered a shocking secret hidden behind my ordinary school life. My friends are actually werewolves. 20 Mercy. Wake up. Mercy blinked several times until a picture of Kristen appeared above her. She yawned and stretched her arms. Hey, she croaked, squinting her eyes from the room's brightness. The window's curtains did not do much to dampen the sun's rays. Mandy made a salve of mixed herbs to reduce the swelling of your foot. The job is rather messy, and it applies much better if you're sitting up. Mercy slowly sat up, giving Kristen better access to her swollen foot. She winced at the sight of her grotesque foot. If anything, it looked worse than it did yesterday. Even her cute toenails couldn't save her now. As Kristen applied the salve, Mercy looked to her right at the clock. The red numbers showed it was 9 in the morning, a few hours since school started. Looks like I'll be missing school today. Mercy yawned. Glancing at Kristen, she remembered what Emma told her when she first started school. Kristen dropped out. You don't go to school anymore, right? She questioned, curious for an explanation. She hoped she wouldn't be touching a sore subject. Kristen nodded, seemingly not bothered by 𝐊𝐲𝐼𝐴𝐷𝐸. I dropped out last year. I didn't feel it was necessary to continue attending when I was going to leave for college. Mercy blinked. Wow, I never thought of not going to college. 𝐊𝐲𝐼𝐴𝐷𝐸 𝐊𝐢𝐳 Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. You are a werewolf. The very word felt awkward leaving her lips. The idea of the entire cult being werewolves was something she accepted, yet it still didn't fail to have her slightly dumbfounded. Kristen looked up and smiled. To be honest, I wouldn't have it any other way. I love being at the diner and managing the aspects of it. I'm also hoping that soon James will be marking me. She blushed at her last disclosure. Mercy giggled. WWW. I knew you and James had a romance going on. What are you guys? Soulmates? Is that what they call it? This time Kristen giggled. That's fiction, Mercy. There are no such thing as soulmates. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I do feel James is the only one I could picture myself with. My wolf has found the most attraction towards him. Her eyes became glassy with affection, causing Mercy to sigh at her own love life, or lack thereof. I'm sure the feelings are mutual. Mercy smirked as she recalled a memory. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. One day I caught James in the library reading books about mates, and I think that if a guy goes to books for advice on his love life, then his head with thoughts about his significant other you. Kristen's smile widened. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He was reading a book. Mercy gave her a wink. It's crazy when I think about it. At one point having him seemed almost impossible. Before he ever noticed me back when I attended high school, he harbored a massive crush for Keisha. She flirted with him every now and then, but even he knew her focus was mainly on Sebastian. Mercy's eyebrows lifted. She had assumed James and Kristen's relationship had been a consummation of years. Wait, then how does this mate thing go? Don't you just know you're made for each other? Like destiny. Would colored eyes looked at her, amused. Werewolves mate similarly to humans. You find someone who you feel you could be the rest of your life with, and then you mark them. Kind of like a wedding. Only with werewolves there is no such thing as an annulment. The moment a male marks his mate, an impenetrable bond is created until death. Mercy nodded, absorbing everything Kristen told her. What if you fall for a human? Kristen shook her head. Mating with a human never happens. As werewolves, our nature is guided towards reproducing. Humans are unable to reproduce our kind. Only a werewolf pairing. That's why a half werewolf does not exist. Mercy felt a large sense of disappointment engulf her, and she knew it had a lot to do with her crush on Sebastian. Now it made complete sense why he didn't like her. She was not a werewolf. Can you turn someone into a werewolf? She pushed. knowing her thoughts would be obvious with this inquiry. Catching the gist of things, Kristen looked up from her task and gave Mercy a small smile. No. Sadly, it's impossible to turn a human into a werewolf. Our wolf side. It's not something you create, but rather born with. Kristen wiped her hands clean with the towel she had balanced on her neck and allowed 𝐿𝐸𝐲𝐻𝐸 foot to rest comfortably on a pillow. That should do it, she pipped, referring to her injured foot. In a couple of hours you'll be washing the old paste off and reapplying a new set. Your foot should be significantly better by then. Okay, that was very nice of you, Kristen, Mercy thanked, returning to her previously laid position. As much as she tried to smile, a frown still marred her face. Usually she would mask her feelings with indifference, but in Kristen's company she didn't feel the need to do so. Noting her thwarted mood, Kristen took a hold of her hand and gave a gentle squeeze. Don't worry too much, Mercy. You are not a werewolf, but I can assure you that you're special. I'd still prefer if I were a werewolf, Mercy grumbled, oblivious to the depth of Kristen's words. You should rest, Kristen advised. She assessed Mercy from afar, noting the unhealthy paleness that had overtook over her usually caramel complexion. Last night took a large toll on your body and you still look very tired. Mercy nodded and positioned her head comfortably on the pillow. She really was tired. The mere conversation she had with Kristen seemed to have drained her energy reserve for the morning, and even blinking was a chore. Her foot, though slightly alleviated compared to the previous night, sent short waves of pain whenever she slightly shifted. Hopefully the salve would work well. The idea of wearing crutches to school was not appealing. Mercy closed her eyes and felt herself fall asleep with the distant sounds of other pack members in the home. Surprised to notice she felt rather safe and at home in a place that was not her own. Oh, Dan. That's one fucked up foot. Shut up. Clearly she was badly injured last night. 𝐊𝐸𝐲𝐻𝐸 𝐵𝐸𝐲𝐻𝐸 𝐊𝐸𝐲𝐻𝐸. I think all of us can clearly see that. Jordan, Smek, Noah, Jordan, Jaden, quiet. Sebastian's right. You might wake my princess up. Snort. Your princess. Where it is just commenting on how ugly her foot looked. You'll still take her. She's perfect. I said quiet. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Great. Nice job. Mercy opened her eyes to a room full of guys. Surrounding her were Jordan, Jaden and Noah, while Sebastian stood afar against wall to her right. It would be a lie if she didn't say she felt pretty darn special. She had 4 single handsome men surrounding her that were all gazing at her with a look of concern, interested in her well-being. Getting severely injured was too bad when you received this quality of attention. Glancing at the clock, Mercy noticed school ended not too long ago. Explaining their presence. Hey guys, she croaked, her voice hoarse from having recently wakened. She sat up straight and winced when her foot sent waves of protest up her spine. From what she could tell, however, they weren't as intense and brutal as they had been prior to Kristen applied the salve. This showed improvement, and a glance at her sore foot confirmed her thought when she saw its size had been decreased by a half. Hey babe, Noah greeted, giving her one of his award-winning smiles. If you had stayed asleep any longer I would have had to kiss you. You know, like that princess we were talking about before. Mercy threw her head back in laughter. Noah chuckled as well, but his humor was cut short with a slap from an annoyed Jordan, whose brown eyes soon turned to gaze at her with concern. How are you feeling? Unlike his twin brother, Jordan's hair was in an unruly fashion. Noticing a leaf stuck in his tresses, Mercy flicked it out and wondered if he had been in his wolf form prior to visiting her. She nodded. Much better actually. That thing Kristen put on my foot toned down the swelling. It's not nearly as unbearable as it was before. To Mercy's embarrassment, her stomach chose that moment to growl. Now that she thought about it, last time she ate was yesterday night at dinner, and it was already lunchtime. Jaden gave her an amused grin. You're hungry. I would have made you something to eat. But 𝐊𝐢𝐬 insisted on being the one to make you lunch. Massey smiled as she thought of the James' younger sister, her wide brown eyes coming to mind. 𝐊𝐢𝐳 the cute. Massey nudged Noah, giving him a knowing glace. And you thought she would be the death of me? Noah shrugged and gave her an easy smile. First impressions can be deceiving. Give 𝐊𝐬𝐬 a few more days and 𝐻𝐻𝐬 shall start rebelling. Massey felt her arm being lifted. She curiously gazed at Jaden, but his sight was fixated on the claw marks that marred her arm. They were deep and harsh. Her skin had not yet developed a scab, so raw pink flesh was still visible. How do you plan on explaining this to your parents? The purple-eyed female pursed her lips. Yesterday I told my mom some story. I managed to convince her it wasn't serious, so as of now she's not too worried. Jaden took her other arm and examined it as well. Taking notice of this, Massey leaned back and smirked. Well, for once your eyes are geared towards a direction that's not my what, she commented, earning for a pair of eyes to snap directly at her. But she was mainly focusing on Jaden. Beside her, Noah snorted, as was expected of his rambunctious self. Jaden's eyes lit up with mirth, amused at her commentary. Yes, very true, sir, she pushed, expecting an explanation. If they honestly thought the prior excuse they gave her at the diner, which consisted of scientific curiosity, the original. Noah threw his hands up with an expression that clearly stated him not getting into this, while Jordan scratched the back of his neck and stared at the design of that they were the most intriguing artwork 𝐿𝐤𝐳 has seen all day. Jaden's eyes filled with something akin to annoyance as he realized he was on his own on this one. The lazy twin turned to Sebastian, who up until now hadn't said a word, but it seemed that just by looking at him he received the response he was looking for. Permission. You have matura. Closing his eyes, he leaned against the wall in his favorite position and remained so as if it answered her questions. I don't even know what that is. Care to elaborate? Massey poked Jaden's stomach, unsatisfied with his visual explanation. 𝐿𝐤𝐳𝐸𝐻𝐬 𝐷𝐼𝐻𝐸𝐬 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐃𝐥𝐻𝐧 enthusiasm. She had never once heard of that word in her life. 𝐿𝐤𝐳𝐸𝐻𝐬 𝐷𝐼𝐻𝐸𝐬 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐃𝐥𝐻𝐧 enthusiasm. Since you're not 18 yet, you technically have prematura, Jordan added, noting that his brother would provide no further explanation as he felt he already fulfilled his part. Once you reach 18 you'll have it fully. Massey's eyebrows drew together in confusion. She still had no idea of what they were talking about. So what does me having mature mean? That he'll be a werewolf? 𝐿𝐤𝐳𝐸𝐻𝐬 𝐷𝐼𝐻𝐸𝐬 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐃𝐥𝐻𝐧 enthusiasm. 𝐿𝐤𝐳𝐸𝐻𝐬 𝐷𝐼𝐻𝐸𝐬 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐃𝐥𝐻𝐧 enthusiasm. Noah laughed, amused by the width of Massey's imagination. No, babe. It means we want to have your babies. Smack. OWW man. Why you gotta hit me so many times today? He gave Jordan a wide-eyed puppy look that even made Massey want to hug him. Because you're always saying stupid shit. Jordan glared at his companion, who in turn merely shrugged at ease. He turned his attention to Massey. Ignore what he said. What it means is that your body can do things other humans can't. Yeah, 'cause, you know, we need more baby mamas to produce other baby mamas. Noah supplied. Jordan sighed, as if too overwhelmed to even bother censoring his friend any longer. Massey looked at everyone in her room before blinking. I still don't get it. She began to comb her hands through her hair, unleashing numerous tangles from her thick mass of black hair. She briefly wondered how crazy she looked. Her hair was probably a mess. Hey, James. Massey greeted as she spotted a familiar mohawk enter the room. I overheard the conversation from outside. He related. The small smile that lingered on his lips let Massey know that it entertained him. He took a quick scan of the room and stepped up to her side. He had noted Sebastian's indifference as he stayed as far as possible from the purple-eyed girl. No's obnoxious snickers due to finding the predicament hilarious, Jordan's peeved glare towards his friend, and 𝐸𝐸 resigned posture. It looked like it was up to him to educate her on her situation. Mercy, you have prematura. Next week when you turn 18, you'll have matura. When werewolves mate with humans they have no offspring. Our sperm, speaking in scientific terms, rejects the egg that resides within a human female. For whatever reason. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐷𝐞𝐬𝐭. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Type seems to be the exception. Your egg accepts our genes and is able to produce a full-blooded werewolf. What Noah meant with his baby mama philosophy is that unlike she-wolves, you have a 50 chance of producing a female baby. Regular she-wolves have a 30 chance, as you could have probably noticed by the sheer amount of men in our pack. Females are not as easy to come by, and are sorely needed for the future of any pack. 𝐷𝐸𝐸's mouth dropped. Well, when one puts it like that, it made a lot more sense. So that's why the cult was so interested in her. She was an enhanced baby machine. In a sense, she should have felt insulted that they were more enthralled by her special parts than herself as a person, but she didn't find any anger to latch onto. She always said she was special just for the sake of saying she was, big confidence and perhaps arrogance that added up to making her who she was. Now, she was actually special. Different. How can you tell someone has matura? She froze. Oh my gosh. Does my Venus has a distinctive smell? She cried. An expression of worry etched on her face. Noah bawled in laughter again, unable to contain himself. This time, Mercy did Jordan the favor and smacked him herself. He afterwards caught her hand and planted a kiss. Don't worry, babe. You don't have a distinctive smell. It's more of an essence. I can't explain it. My wolf can just tell when a girl has matura. Wolves are naturally attracted to unmarked women such as yourself. Mercy sighed in relief and released the tension that had built up in her shoulders. At least she didn't have to worry about something as awkward as that. She smiled at no mentioning a wolf's natural attraction toward her kind. That meant that as much as Sebastian loved to fake he was uninterested in her, some part of him was, which would explain why in his wolf form he was much warmer and open to her. Is there anyone else in this pack who's like me? Mercy questioned, thinking of the other girls she acquainted with on her first visit. Jaden opened a lazy eye and smirked. 𝐿𝐸𝐴𝐷𝐞𝐬𝐿. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Nurse 𝐸𝐸's eyes sparkled. Her interest spiked. Who for the first time in the entire engagement Sebastian spoke. My mother, 21. Mercy's face broke into a wide smile when 𝐿𝐸𝐸 entered the room. She bared a large tray stacked with food and walked purposefully in her direction. Jaden had notified her earlier of 𝐿𝐸𝐸's decision to make her food, but seeing her now she found the image absolutely adorable and wanted to shower her with kisses. I made you something to eat, 𝐿𝐸𝐸 declared. The food looked delicious, and as the tray was carefully placed above her lap, the aroma that wafted up her nostrils agreed with the yummy view. Mercy took a bite out of the lasagna. It's delicious, 𝐿𝐸𝐸, she complimented, sitting up straighter so that the food went easier down her throat. 𝐿𝐸𝐸 clasped her hands together, satisfied. I would stay with you, but Jaden needs to me in the kitchen to finish cooking for the others. Mercy shook her head. Don't worry, hun. Just by bringing this you've done enough. She gave 𝐿𝐸𝐸 an affectionate kiss on the cheek before waving her off to her duties. The little girl smiled before skipping her way out the room. As she began to eat her food, Mercy pondered on the excuse she would tell her mom this time as to why she was sleeping over the cult's house again. At least her mom was blasting her oath at right. She did leave her phone at home. Either way, she doubted her mother was getting too worried. She knew as good as anyone else that Mercy could take care of herself, as long as it had nothing to do with psychotic supernatural beings, that is. Chorus wolves. She found it ironic how the events in her life mildly correlated with that of Jeanette from the diary. 𝐾 and to think there's in the fiction aisle. Now that she thought about it, what more of the fiction pile was truly fiction? If there were werewolves, Did that mean vampire? And all the other storybook creatures she had grown to know about were actually real. Did her enhanced Venus extend to those creatures too? Massey giggled, which made her almost choke on her food. She took a sip of the water Haley had provided to clear her throat. Yeah. She was definitely going to spend more time in the library as of now reading those archives. If she was going to be in a relationship with a werewolf, she might as well be more knowledgeable about them rather than depending on the various myths and tales that were created courtesy of dear L. Hollywood. A nervous tingle went down Nurse as she thought about Sebastian. She was just like his mother. It made her feel as if she were a step ahead of all other competition. If there had been any doubt to begin with, of course, it would explain why she was a towering giant like the rest of them, as well as her easy acceptance of Massey. Now that she thought about it, did that mean she would stay young and pretty for a long time like Mia? There is no way some can be near in her 40s, be the mother of 2, and look like that. Massey put her utensils down and places the tray on the dresser beside her, already finished with the meal. Lifting up her shirt, she patted her full stomach with satisfaction. She could totally get used to eating the food they made here. Massey lifted her head when she heard the door open, and smiled curiously at the entering figure. How did you find my hiding place? Her smile quickly turned to a wince when she saw the expression of her visitor's face. What of irritation, worry, and panic? She was totally going to be in for it. I feel fine, she said quickly, before the rain gave way to a storm. Lydia glowered at her, unamused. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐷𝐞𝐽𝐻𝐸 𝐂𝐿𝐷𝐸𝐻𝐸𝐿𝐷𝐸𝐻𝐸𝐿𝐷𝐸𝐻𝐸𝐿𝐷𝐸𝐿𝐷𝐸𝐻𝐸𝐸𝐻𝑸𝑛. What the ugh? Do you know how worried I've been? You were not in your room this morning. Then you did not appear in school. Then afterward, I walk home to then find out by this one. She pointed, referring to Micah, who then chose this moment to poke his head through the doorway and smile sheepishly. But you are in his home. Why hell? I know when. Last night. Are you insane? Yes, you are. What were you thinking? That is it. You were not thinking. And then, I have to find out that you were hurt by a dog. Lydia scolded, stomping her foot. Lydia twirled the ring on her finger anxiously as she attempted to control her breathing. Sensing her distress, Micah placed his hand over hers. Lydia visibly relaxed, but in moments her guard was up again. Micah, my sister and I need to speak about a delicate matter. Micah's eyes stared at her for a moment before he nodded and exited the room. Lydia merely continued twirling her ring, until she heard the click that confirmed his leave. She waited a few breaths before sitting beside her sister. Massey's right side dipped at the added weight. Glancing down, she noticed Lydia was wearing the present she bought her at the small gift shop. The silver bracelet dangled of her small wrist, which made Marcy feel a little bit better. It meant her sister was mad, more so worried than anything else. Moving her gaze upward, she took into account her sister's miserable face. Last time I checked, I was the one who got herself injured. Not you, Massey joked, attempting to lighten the mood. Lydia shook her head. I don't think you realize how badly you were injured. Look at your foot mass, she exclaimed, voice laced with disbelief. How could you be so reckless as to go out in the middle of the night like that? It was an accident. I was sneaking out to meet up with. Lydia rolled her eyes. I know what happened, Massey. So then you know that I fell off a tree in some branches. Lydia grabbed a pillow from beside her sister and threw it at her. Exasperated. Massey, I do not think you comprehend the full depth of my words. I know what happened. Massey paused. No, her sister huffed. Of course I do. Did you really think that I would eat the total bull you feed to Mom? With some persuasion and a whole lot of yelling, I managed to get everything out of Micah. Massey leaned back on the bed, thoughtful. She certainly did not expect for that to happen, but for whatever reason it felt as if something was lifted off her chest. Oh well, in that case this makes it a lot easier. I guess it goes without saying that we will not let Mom and Dad know anything about this. They probably won't believe us in a second. If they do, since it is you who would be saying it, they'll probably hightail the heck out of this town and back to Boringville. So we will remains it. Lydia's eyes wide, and before she lowered her voice. We are in a house full of lycanthropes. Does that not mean anything to you? She admonished, returning to her previous practice of twirling her ring. It was then that Marcy realized that Lydia's distress went deeper than just her physical state. She was well aware of how smart and practical her sister was, always taking the logical approach to things. Finding out the entire cult family was actually a werewolf pack disconcerted her. They weren't the ones who hurt me. If it weren't for them, I would probably be dead by now on my foot. As awful as it looks, would be a lot worse. You should feel more at ease around them. Mercy placed her hands around her sister's ringing fingers for comfort. Lydia clenched her jaw. Did not like you. Her eyes brimmed with tears. I can't just find out this sort of stuff and be okay about it. You do know why they even talk to us, right? How do you know if they would have still saved you if you didn't have a different reproductive system? Mercy blanched, for once not having an immediate response. She had never thought of it in those terms. When Lydia put it that way, it certainly sounded more selfish than an act of kindness. But it was Sebastian who had saved her, and he certainly did not make any moves on her that would make her think he planned on taking her on romantically. He did it because he didn't want to see her hurt. The rest of the cult had been nothing short of courteous and kind when it came to her injuries, and she considered them her friends. Lydia, don't say that, Mercy whispered. Tears fell down her sister's tan cheeks. I have it too, that dreaded thing. It's no wonder Micah pays so much attention to me. For a while I almost thought he actually liked me. But it's this thing 8 years after. Clearly affected by the turn of events, Mercy moved more to the left of her bed, giving space for her sister to further move in. After patting the open space, Lydia lay down beside her, allowing Mercy to put an arm around her shoulders. Micah really does like you. Let him find some other girl with a reproductive system that can pop out lycanthrope babies. I will not be used, she stated. I'm not saying matura has nothing to do with it, but it's not the only reason HES after you. Think of it as a physical trait, which now that I think about it. Mercy reasoned, trying to console her wounded sister. She knew her sister instinct was right on the dot. This time her sister had totally fallen for Micah, despite her not being completely aware of it now. Some people like those with blue eyes, and others are attracted with people with brown eyes. I happen to like both, and a guy with an amazing body. If Sebastian didn't have the body he has now, I doubt it'd even bat an eye in his direction. We all seek physical attraction. Ours just happens to be different. Mercy felt her sister trace her fingers around the indents of her arms. For a brief moment she remembered the beast clawing her weakened form. Lydia sighed. I don't know. Trust me, if this enhanced Venus was all I needed to get Sebastian, I would have had him by now. But do you see us all couple, like no? Lydia laughed at her outburst, her trodden mood slightly uplifted. Is that what you call it? I guess you're right. Well, see. Mercy read through his sister's words. She needed time to adjust to these new truths and think them through. Darling, don't you know? I'm always right. They both giggled and allowed themselves to enjoy each other's familiar company. Mercy shifted in her queen-size bed, only to sigh and move again. After Lydia left her room to go share with Haley, Kristen entered and applied a new layer of poultice on her foot, decreasing another inch of her swollen flesh. Now, she could lift it up and down with feeling too much pain. Her uneasiness probably had a lot to do with the conversation she had with Lydia prior. Despite being responsible for getting that sister out of her mood, now she was struck with an unpleasant perspective. Did the cult really ever talk to her just because she had matura? She knew her relationship with them went deeper than that, but for whatever reason the thought still pierced her heart. It really would be a depressing thought if they had ever only feasted their attentions to her because of her Venus. She groaned. Since when did she become so sensitive? Angry. She pushed those thoughts away. The covers around her were soft and light enough that she didn't feel ensnared by them. She pulled them tight against her for a feeling of security. She almost jumped at hearing her door being opened. but instead closed her eyes to pretend to be asleep. It was probably Jordan or Noah coming to check up on her, but she knew that if she kept up her facade they would leave her to rest. Marcy yelped when she felt a wet tongue lick her cheeks. When she opened her eyes, her heartbeat slowed to her normal rate when she realized it was Cinnamon. Wolf chased Wendy to Marcy, cowed and helped but smile at the creature beside her. It felt weird seeing him indoors, having been so accustomed to meeting him outside at the edge of the playground. In the closed room, Cinnamon seemed much larger, but no more intimidating. She kissed his nose and caressed his head. A voice at the back of her mind gently reminded her that he was no longer a random wolf she became friends with in the dark hours of the night, but Sebastian Pierce, her school crush. Seeing him like this though, it was easy to forget. I am feeling much better, and my foot is not ugly like the first time you saw it, she updated, lifting the covers to show. Because the lights weren't on, only the moon's light from outside gave a clouded picture of her injured foot. Marcy winced. Okay, so while her foot was no longer swollen with inflammation, the colors of her foot still looked rather grotesque. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Never mind. Cinnamon yawned dismissively, as if the appearance of the foot was of no importance to him. Marcy narrowed her eyes. You do realize I will have to go to school tomorrow, and if people see my foot like this I will be knocked down at least a point. The wolf moved his head sideways, confused. Marcy sighed. On a physical scale of 110 I am obviously a 10, but now since my foot looks like this, I can be bumped down to an 8. Marcy leaned back against her pillow, pensive. Unless I make up a cool story as to why I have it, then maybe I can give that brave cool girl vibe. Cinnamon landed her with an "Are you serious" expression. Marcy shrugged and returned his look with a duh. She sat up on the bed and stretched, lifting her arms above her head and giving a satisfied sigh when she worked the kinks out. She really was not used to being bedridden for so long. While the idea of returning to school with an injury sounded annoying, she was looking forward to getting out this bed and moving along. Marcy went to untangle the mass of hair on her head, but found it tedious when she realized how knotted it truly was. She decided she would get the brush that was currently residing in the bathroom. Marcy placed her feet at the edge of the bed, wincing slightly when her heel landed on the floor a little too harshly. Compared to the first night here, the pain was significantly lower, but still painful nonetheless. It would have to remain on, weight-bearing for the next 3 days at the rate it was healing. Mandy's poultices were truly a miracle worker. Standing up, a wave of dizziness hit her, making her almost fall over to the ground. Thankfully, Cinnamon was watchful and she was able to grab onto him to remain steady. He barked at her in disapproval. Marcy groaned. "Why are you mad at me for? All I wanted was to get my detangle brush from the bathroom," she defended. He growled and gave enough force to make her topple backwards, right back into her bed. He then trotted to the bathroom and returned quickly with her purple brush. Marcy smiled, retrieving the detangler from his mouth. "Well, aren't you just a doll?" She kissed his forehead and then proceeded to comb out the nest on her head. When she finished, she gazed at Cinnamon, who was laying down on the floor appearing to be at rest. He seemed so far away. Usually when they meet at the park he was always right beside her. "Cinnamon," she called. He lifted his head, as if to say what. "Come here." She patted the area beside her on the bed. His bark was shortened to the point. It was clear he said no. Marcy pouted. "Pretty please, my cinnamon bun. My sweet cinnamon toast crunch." He got up from the floor and neared her bed, but made no move to join her. "I'll brush your hair and pet you," she bribed. "One over." Cinnamon went to the empty side of the bed and climbed on, being mindful of not accidentally hitting her foot. Marcy giggled with glee at her victory. She loved when she got exactly what she wanted. Keeping true to her promise, she proceeded to brush out his hair with her detangler, feeling safe and happy to be so near the one who saved her, especially knowing who he truly was. "I thought I told you before to put on some conditioner after you shampoo Cinnamon." He ignored her, but if his expression was anything to go by, he was in blissful heaven. Knowing him, He probably didn't get pampered like this on a daily basis, if at all. It was satisfying to see him be so at peace because of her. After brushing him as far as she could reach, and running her hands through him for a bit, Massey finally rested her head on the pillow behind her. Cinnamon snuggled his head on her chest and she hugged his head against her. He felt so deliciously warm. Eventually, they both fell asleep and joined dreamland together. Massey woke to the first few rays of sunlight hitting across her face. Outside, she could hear the birds chirping and flapping around near a tree by the window. The first thing she noticed was that Cinnamon was no longer here. She sat up and rubbed the sleepiness from her eyes. She was not surprised he left before morning came, although she did daydream how nice it would be if she woke up to Sebastian in human form. The second thing she noticed was that beside her bed there were 2 pairs of crutches that had not been there before. Since today she would be returning to school, they would be extremely helpful. She slowly lifted herself off the bed and grabbed them, not wanting to have a repeat near, full like she had yesterday. The red numbers of the clock showed it was 5 a.m., giving her ample time to get ready. She was usually an early riser, but her body was clearly more than well, rested after being in bed for so long. She was actually hoping one of the guys could drop her off at her house before going to school. That way she could change into clothes that actually fit her. The previous day Kristen had offered her some of her clothes to wear for school today. But taking note of Kristen's more generous build and her tendency to wear loose clothing, she knew they would fit too big on her. Oh well, maybe when she got pregnant with Sebastian's babies, she would gain more weight in the right places and be more curvy too. Yes, positive thoughts only. Upon entering the bathroom, Massey was able to situate herself on the bath chair Kristen brought in yesterday. It was a convenient apparatus made of durable plastic that allowed her to shower without having to stand up. She didn't know why they had such a thing, but she figured with all the hard training these wolves did, it was possible they could sustain injuries leading to the need to make use of this. After finishing her morning routine, she ended up sitting on the bed wearing another set of Kristen's clothes. Beside her was a plastic yellow bag filled with the sleepwear from the day she was attacked. Haley was kind enough to wash them for her yesterday, and she wanted to make sure she didn't leave them here. Massey made sure to towel dry her hair well enough so that it didn't drip all over the back of her shirt. Now that would be annoying. Just as she was finishing, she heard a light knock on her door. "You can come in," she invited, removing the towel. She lightly ran her fingers through her tresses to make sure they were sufficiently dried. They were slightly damp, but not enough to wet her shirt. The door opened to reveal Sebastian. Remembering yesterday, she gave him a playful smile. He ignored her smile and instead chose to assess her from top to bottom, his golden eyes remaining on her injured foot for a few seconds longer. Her feet were currently covered by a pair of black socks that were folded beneath her loose jeans. The swelling had decreased even more than it had yesterday, and she estimated that by tomorrow all the swelling would be completely gone. All that would then be left is the ugly coloring until it finished healing. "I see you made good use of the crutches I left you," he analyzed, taking note of the crutches beside her. "I didn't expect you to wake up so early. We still have 2 hours before school starts." Massey shrugged. "I was tired of being in bed and actually, I was hoping you could drop me off at home. I want enough time to change into my actually clothes." Pulling on the baggy plain brown shirt, Sebastian lifted a brow. "What's wrong with the clothes you're wearing now?" Putting weight on her strong foot, Massey stood to her true height. Immediately she felt the jeans slide down. They would have revealed the top of her underwear if the brown shirt she was wearing weren't so long. "For starters, these don't fit me." She pivoted on her strong foot and fixed her eyes on the mirror to the right, looking at her rear view. "Ugh, look at that. My butt looks so small. This isn't right," she cried, offended at the view. The jeans she had at home were much more complimentary to her form and made her butt look much peckier than it really was. Man, she really had to go back to doing squats every night. This just would not do. Sebastian rolled his eyes and looked at the ceiling, exasperated. "Come get some breakfast and I'll drop you off," he conceded. Massey clapped her hands, content with his agreement. Perfect. Grabbing onto her crutches and the light plastic bag, she followed him to the kitchen. Behind him, she couldn't help but admire his physique. Even though he sported a loose shirt, it was still evident he had muscles beneath them. When he walked, he eluded authority and strength. His back was straight, and his step strong and assured. What lovely man to look at. As if sensing her gaze, he turned to look at her. Is anything wrong? He questioned, sounding slightly annoyed. His deep voice reverberated through the quiet hall. No, why would that be? She replied hastily, hoping he didn't catch her staring. Though if he did, that wouldn't be the first time, as she recalled being caught by the others when he was mowing the lawn. You stopped. Mercy looked at her spot and ahead at Sebastian. He was right. She had stopped. Their distance was much bigger than when they first began. She sighed inwardly. It was her fault he was such a fine specimen. What was a girl to do? Noticing her loss of words, he merely began walking again. Keep up. Giving her no room for an excuse. I. She joked, moving to catch up. They spoke no further after that. Even after they reached the kitchen, where she was able to see Jaden sitting at the table eating breakfast alone. Noticing her entrance, he gave her a nod and pointed to an empty plate. Serve yourself as much as you'd like. The table was loaded with an assortment of freshly cut fruits, hash browns, toast. To my agent extraordinaire, 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And bacon. Marcy sat down on an empty chair and began to fill her plate. Noticing the rather empty table, she wondered where everyone else was. Isn't anyone else coming to eat breakfast? She inquired. After gulping down some orange juice, Jaden shook his head, his shaggy hair in sync with his movement. You're a half hour early. Be thankful. Otherwise it's doubtful there would be any food left on the table. Jaden divulged, as if hearing her inquiry. In came a sleepy-looking Noah, still sporting pajama bottoms and completely topless. He yawned loudly and stretched, blinking multiple times when he noticed Massey before giving her a large grin. Hey, princess. Coming up to give her a kiss on the cheek. Massey giggled, pleased with his term of affection. Good morning, Noah, she replied, poking at his ABS. They felt so hard. It's been a long time since Jess felt such something this nice. Taking advantage of her distraction, Noah grabbed her fork and downed half of her eggs and a few slices of bacon. Noah, sit down and serve your own food, Sebastian ordered, sounding slightly peeved. Mercy looked up at him. You're not eating, she pointed out. Since the moment they entered the kitchen, he remained standing and had not down. I already ate. It would be helpful if you hurried up and finished. Phew. What had him in a tizzy? Deciding to ignore his comment, Mercy merely returned her attention to the rest of her food. Despite Noah managing to eat much of it in a bite, she found herself not really minding. Haley had taken great care to make sure she was well fed during her stay here, so she wasn't feeling very hungry. After downing the rest in a few quick bites, she stood to carry the plate to the sink. This proved difficult as she had to use crutches. Taking note of her struggle, Sebastian silently took a plate with utensils and placed them in the sink himself. Mercy mumbled a quick thanks. He'll be back, he announced to the two, taking a pair of car keys from his back pocket. Noah wiggled his eyebrows suggestively. Where are you guys going? And he questioned. Sebastian gave him a glare. In dropping her off home. That's it. His voice was hard as he answered. Noah merely chuckled. I was just asking. I can drop her off myself, he offered casually, dumping a large portion of hash browns on his plate. Jaden smacked his hand where he moved to take more. I'll see you when I get back, he said with finality. It was clear by his tone that he wanted no more words to proceed from Noah's mouth. See you later, princess, Noah garbled, stuffing his mouth. Bye, guys. Mercy went to reach for the plastic bag with her clothes, but Sebastian beat her to it. Noah gave her a wink, and Jaden mumbled a quiet farewell. She had to stop herself from giggling at Noah's antics. She could tell he purposely did things to embarrass people or put them in uncomfortable situations. When they reached the front door, 𝐵𝐵 waited patiently for Sebastian to bring the car up. Enthusiasm. In the meantime, she looped us through the jeans and brought them up higher. All the hopping she did with the crutches did not make wearing these jeans any easier. She could not wait to get home and put on more flattering clothes. When Sebastian pulled up, he wasted no time in getting out of the car and opening the door for her. So far this entire morning, 𝐿𝐲𝐷 been nothing short of a gentleman to her. Despite how reserved he was, it pleased her to have him minister to her like this. After getting comfortable in the passenger seat and managing to fit the crutches, he closed the door and walked to the driver's side. As they drove away from the large estate, 𝐵𝐵 looked curiously at the surrounding forest. Now in broad daylight, it was hard to think that she had been attacked in there. Archie going to turn on the radio. Noticing the silence, "I don't listen to music in the car," he stated plainly, his eyes remaining on the road. 𝐵𝐵 scrunched her brows. She didn't know of anyone who didn't listen to music when driving. Even her boring younger sister would indulge in some slow music when driving. Coming to a quick conclusion, she turned on the radio and began exploring. "Let's see. What kind of stuff are you into? Do you like pop music?" Turning to station that featured all the hottest hits. If Sebastian's immediate grimace was anything to go by, that was not his style. 𝐿𝐲𝐷 Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Not that. Maybe hard rock. You seem like a silent badass, she mused, flipping the station. At this, he gave her an unamused look. Alternative. As her fingers scrolled, she paused at a country music station. Perhaps you have a hidden taste in no, he deadpanned, interrupting her. 𝐵𝐵 laughed at his obvious disapproval. The next station was an instrumental one that played jazz. She glanced at Sebastian, expecting him to reject this one as the others. What about this classical one? For a moment, he was quiet. This is not unpleasant, he finally admitted, realizing this was probably as good as she was going to get. She left it on that station. The rest of the drive there was in comfortable silence. It seemed Sebastian had no intention in initiating conversation with her, and for now she would be okay with that. 𝐵𝐵 found herself admiring his side profile. Though they were only seniors in high school, he looked every bit a mature man. She noticed the hair on his head looked smoother than his hair as a wolf. Would he allow her to touch it, even as he allowed her to touch him when he was in wolf form? Her fingers reached out in an attempt to satisfy her curiosity, but before they could reach his mane, Sebastian stopped her. His own fingers locked at her wrist to stop her from proceeding further. "Don't," he said sternly, letting her wrist go after a few tense seconds. She bit her lip. Clearly, he was not as accepting of her touches in human form. She didn't quite understand why. She mentally berated her hand for being so impulsive. Bad hand. Don't do it again. When they arrived at her house, she realized she never gave him instructions on how to get there. As before, Sebastian opened a passenger door to facilitate her exit and carried her plastic bag. She really didn't need his help in carrying that bag, but since he was so kind in offering, she would allow herself to be spoiled in this. After ringing the doorbell of her house twice, the door was opened to reveal her mother. "Sweetie, how are you? Hi." Immediately taking notice of Sebastian's imposing figure behind her. "This is Sebastian, Mom," she introduced. "Archie's just dropping me off early so I can get changed into better clothes." Recognition flashed before her eyes, and 𝐵𝐵 then realized the error she committed in allowing him to walk her to her door. She recalled having her mom think that Sebastian was her boy friend, but that wasn't exactly true. Mrs. Wilton smiled approvingly. "Oh, so I finally get to meet 𝐵𝐵 at 𝐿𝐲𝐷. Wow," she yelled, aiming to cover her mother's voice. "Look at the time. Noah must be anxious waiting for you." "Yeah, Mom, another day. Sebastian's very busy and he needs to leave now." Right. By Sebastian, she rushed, getting into her house in one hop. The last thing she saw was Sebastian's very puzzled face as she quickly closed the door with a frenzied smile. After hearing the loud click, she let out a huge puff of air. Relieved. Now that was close. 23. Mercy expertly avoided her mother's suspicious eyes. She knew it was very abrupt the way she slammed the door at 𝐨𝐥𝐺𝐼𝐻's face. But if his attitude was anything to go by, him finding out her mother thought he was her boyfriend would cause needed problems. No thank you. She just kettled her way out of this one for as long as she could. Is there anything I should know? Her mother asked, wary of her daughter's behavior. Mercy cleared her features before giving her an innocent look. No, everything is fine. Prior to dropping me off, he mentioned needing to do something for his cousin. I'm just making sure 𝐊𝐲's not being held back or anything like that, she said casually, hoping to abate her mother's cynicism. Her mother continued to eye her critically, but appeared to give in. To my 𝐊𝐲𝐳𝐬 𝐑𝐞𝐝𝐬, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Just remember, I expect a proper introduction for your father and I next time he comes around. There's no need to hide a relationship from us. It's not as if we forbid you from having a boyfriend. Yes, mother. Mercy conceded. Before the conversation could drag on any further, Mercy moved towards her room to change. Upstairs, she settled for a nice flattering pair of jeans matched with a casual purple top. Deciding she didn't want her hair flapping around all day as she moved in crutches, she opted to tie her hair into a high ponytail. With her hair up, she looked younger but slightly more edgy, which was the look she was going for. When she arrived in school, it was just as she expected. Her friends erupted with questions at her injured state. Oh my gosh, what happened? Asked 𝐿𝐻, eyes wide as she took in her injury. Lily's small tender hand went above her lips, covering a silent gasp. Is this why you didn't come to school yesterday? Mercy nodded, though she was thankful it had healed so quickly. Within 2 days the swelling had almost subsided. The multiple socks layering over her bandaged foot made it look bigger than it really was, but she appreciated how it served as a protective cushion. Though she hadn't thought up a cool story to tell her friends, there was a better idea in mind to describe her accident. I was climbing a tree and ended up falling. Thankfully, Sebastian was there to rescue me. He really is such a sweetheart. It's so great to hang out with strong friends, she mentioned casually, but Mercy noticed how her friends showed immediate interest. Emily's eyes narrowed in jealousy. You were hanging out with Sebastian? She questioned, disbelief apparent in her features. Mercy smirked. She knew saying this would press some of her buttons. Lily's eyes shined with awe. Wow, that is such a fairy tale, so like a knight in shining armor, she gushed. Emma May gaped. I don't know how you do it. How on earth did you manage to befriend him? Mercy shrugged. When things are meant to be, they happen. Destiny is pulling us together, she said confidently. And truly, she believed this to be the case. Not only was Sebastian physically appealing, but as she witnessed this morning, he was also a gentleman. Knowing he was cinnamon made her more drawn to him than before, especially since he was noticeably more affectionate in wolf form. She desired to continue getting to know him, as well as the rest of the pack. She couldn't imagine letting them go now with all they've done for her and all that she knew. Emily sneered. Don't get ahead of yourself. You're not even dating yet. You're so cocky about something that isn't even yours. Mercy rolled her eyes. Emily had a valid point, but she trusted her instincts more. I want you to remember this day when I end up being Sebastian's girlfriend, because I won't even waste a breath telling you I told you so. Giving her a wide cocky grin. Before Emily could give a snark remark, Emma raised her hands to diffuse the rising argument. To my 𝐊𝐻𝐻 𝐑𝐞𝐝𝐬, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. So since you're injured, you probably need help carrying your books. They'll be more than glad to help you, she offered, successfully bringing that attention elsewhere. Mercy smiled sincerely. She had made a good choice when she befriended her at the beginning of the school year. Thanks. I appreciate it. Throughout the day, Emma kept true to her word. She carried all her supplies from class to class, even courteous enough to return with her to her locker when she realized she missed a different notebook for math and social studies. When they entered Mr. Simon's math class, Massey expressed her gratitude once more. "Thanks again for doing this. After this class you won't have to come get me. I'll ask Jordan to do it." Massey sat down on her desk and found place for her crutches. Emma nodded, dropping her books onto her desk. "No problem, girlie. I'll catch you after social studies." As she left, Massey noticed Jordan and Sebastian speaking in low tones just outside the doorway. Emma sneaked a look in their direction when she passed by them. Massey propped her hands under her chin, wondering what they were speaking about, as if feeling her gaze. Their eyes shifted to her. If she didn't know any better, she would have assumed they were talking about her. Massey blew them an affectionate kiss. Jordan was kind enough to return her gesture, but his golden eyes counterpart merely shook his head, disdainful of her kiss, since Sebastian was already aware of her feelings toward him. Massey figured there was no use in her trying to hide it or feign disinterest. She would have fun breaking through his tough layers. The duo finished their conversation after a few more seconds, and Jordan managed to be in his seat by the time the bell rang. Math class had officially begun. Professor Seaman was not in a mood to teach, for his request was that the students do practice questions from a text box as he sprawled lazily on a chair and graded what appeared to be test papers from another class period. The class happily took it in stride. This meant they could have conversation whistle they worked as long as the noise level was kept in check, of course. Massey crossed her legs in Jordan's direction. "What were you guys talking about in the hallway?" she finally asked, curiosity burning through her mind. Jordan smiled cheekily, a sharp canine peeking through. "Wouldn't you like to know, eh?" His eyes gleamed with hidden knowledge. Massey grabbed his arm and pulled him towards her. "Tell me," she pressured. "All I can say is that it has to do with your upcoming birthday. Sebastian will probably have a private talk with you about that." Jordan passed her fingers across his lips. The message was clear. He would not be indulging her with additional information aside from what he disclosed. Massey swooned. She felt as though she were in a huge happy bubble flying higher and higher into the sky. By next week she would be turning 18, meaning she would have matura. "I hope he asks me to have his babies." Wistful, Jordan roared with laughter, which he had to tactfully turn into a strong cough when Mr. Seaman gave him a pointed look. Massey narrowed her eyes, offended. "Okay, will say this. Babies were not involved in the conversation." Massey felt her happy bubble pop, sending her at a most abrupt fall from bliss. "I knew that had been too easy," she grumbled, turning her attention back to the practice problems at hand. When the bell to Mr. Barman's social studies class rang, Massey didn't miss a beat and tapped the shoulders of the man a seat ahead of her. Throughout class, Sebastian hadn't as much in her direction, much less start a conversation. "Are you going to continue being a gentleman to me and carry my books for me to my next class?" Massey asked, looking at him expectantly. She knew Emma had agreed to come get her after this class, but she much preferred Sebastian's interaction. The dark-haired male didn't lift his gaze from the phone in his hand. Massey was amazed he even had one. He seemed to anti-social to be communicating with anyone. "One of your friends promised to come here and do that for you," he remarked dismissively. Messa 𝐊𝐳𝐥𝐿. When Emma said that, it had been inside Mr. Seaman's class. At the time, 𝐊𝐤𝐳𝐥𝐿 been preoccupied speaking with Jordan outside. "How did you hear that?" Sebastian remained silent, but she quickly realized his hearing was to be blamed. These enhanced senses were not doing her any favors. It was an inconvenient tool that smashed her plans into tiny pieces. "You really do hate me, don't you?" she found herself saying. Sebastian sighed and ran curvated fingers through his hair. "I do not hate you," he stated simply, finally meeting her eyes with his. His amber flames burned her inner core with their sincerity. "You do, otherwise you would be nice to me," she accused, her bottom lip protruding. Why couldn't he just comply with her wishes? She was used to men falling for her every whim and agreeing to her requests. It's not even like I'm asking for much. "We both have lunch after this anyway." A small smile graced his features. Have you always been this dramatic? Without waiting for a response, he picked up a few books and joined them with his own. Marcy was startled at the sudden change of events, but felt a warmness sweep up her cheek at his commentary. As they walked together in the hallway, she noticed Sebastian was mindful of not moving too fast ahead of her. This was a nice change from the previous times when he purposely walked faster to lose her. He truly had been evading her presence before. She looked forward to seeing her friend's face when they saw her enter the cafeteria with Sebastian holding her things. Before they entered the lunchroom, Sebastian stopped on his tracks. My sister wishes for you to come visit after school. She plans to check your foot and apply another layer of salve. 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬, she responded, smiling. She was thankful of Kristen's thoughtfulness. She owed her rapid healing to her diligence in applying those treatments. The idea of going to their home again caused excitement to bubble in her chest. Sebastian nodded. James will drive you to our home after school. He will find you, he informed, before launching into the cafeteria. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐸𝐻𝐬𝐷𝐞𝐝 𝐂𝐥𝐻𝐬𝐑𝐞𝐝𝐲. The incessant chatter rang loudly against her ear, a stark contrast to the emptier hallway. The smell of cheap pizza assaulted her senses, letting her know the food today was not going to be appetizing. Already she missed Jaden and 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐸𝐻𝐬 cooking. Sebastian remained silent as he reached her table and placed her books in front of her typical seat. She was impressed with his awareness of her seating. Her table's loud chatter lowered considerably as they stared, all struck that he would grace them with his presence. He waited for her to sit in her seat before leaving to his own table without as much as a goodbye. Already accustomed to his reserved persona, Marcy paid him no mind and instead focused her attention on the 3 pair of eyes that were burning with questions. Emma was the first to break the silence. I was wondering why you weren't in your class when I went to go get you. Casting her tray of unit and pizza to the side, I managed to convince Sebastian to help me. I'm surprised he even did it, she answered honestly. Lilith's eyes followed Sebastian's movements as he sat at his usual table with the colt. I won't be surprised if you end up sitting with them eventually. Time will tell. She didn't miss the look of jealousy that crossed Emily's eyes at comment, nor Emma's reluctant smile. Maybe having Sebastian drop her books off a good idea. She didn't want them to resent her for the extra attention they gave her. While Lydia was ever the sweet, supporting friend, Emma was probably slightly annoyed she got this much preference. Marcy didn't blame her. If the roles were switched, she would feel the same way. To avoid this, she would keep the rest of her cult interactions under wraps. They were a werewolf pack anyway, and she now needed to be more discreet. Accidentally exposing their secret could only cause unneeded troubles. Your foot is looking great. I don't think you'll be needing to apply any more salve after this. The rest will heal on its own, Kristen said, beginning to cover her foot with a new set of bandages. Marcy nodded her head optimistically. One day with crutches and already she wanted nothing more to do with them. Her arms were sore from all the hopping through the halls and going up and down the stairs. And second, she was tired of having to find place for them every place she went. Their only redeeming quality was having Sebastian pamper her by carrying her books to lunch. Thanks, Kristen. I truly appreciate it, Marcy said. She began to slowly slide on the layers of black socks once Kristen finished trapping it. By now the pain had subsided substantially. This time when she stood, the pain was bearable on her feet. Walking, however, was a different story. If she tried to leverage her weight, evenly her walk became unsteady and a limp was inevitable. James stood against the wall, eyes fixated on his girl kneeling before her. His were filled with fondness and desire. Marcy, if you don't mind, I'd like to speak with Kristen for a few minutes before I drop you off home. Marcy smiled knowingly, causing Kristen to blush. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐸𝐻𝐬𝐷𝐞𝐝 Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Don't let me stop you. They'll be looking for one of the guys to bother. Gathering her crutches, she left the couple to their privacy and headed to the living room. Save for the plump, comfortable-looking brown couches and homely decorations, Emptiness greeted her there. Fortunately, her ears caught the distant sound of movement and grunts. Deciding to follow this, she was led further back in the home to a rear door that opened to a spacious backyard. When 𝐷 approached this, she was greeted by a most beautiful sight. A group of males were working out. To the far right were the younger ones, and she noticed Sebastian seemed to be coaching them all into an intense exercise. To the left were the older ones working independently. She was easily able to spot the twins moving some heavy ropes against a tree. Maybe if she trained herself to do those, using crutches wouldn't be so tiresome. Glancing at her crutches with distaste, she left them inside and slowly limped her way to Noah, who was the closest to her. "Hi, honey bear," 𝐷 greeted, stopping a few feet away. He was on the grass doing one-arm push-ups. Noah gave her a toothy grin. "Princess, you're not sure you should be out here, but I can't say I don't enjoy your presence." He was probably right. This was clearly a male-dominated area, and she stuck out oddly. "I came to admire the view. I am in blissful male heaven," 𝐷 cheered, looking at all the shirtless male bodies around her. Some of them gave her curious glances, but the majority seemed to be focused on their task. "Don't stare too much. I might start getting jealous," Noah warned playfully, giving her a wink. 𝐷 smirked. "My eyes are only on you, honey bear. You look positively striking doing those one-arm push-ups, so very strong," she praised. And truly he did. It made sense now why the cult was so well built. Aside from their obvious wolf genes, these people took training seriously. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐸𝐷𝐞𝐝 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐸𝐷𝐞𝐝. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, Noah said casually, switching to his other arm. "This is nothing. I could do these with you on my back," he boasted confidently. "Let's test that out then," 𝐷 challenged, moving to get on his back. Noah paused for a moment to give her time to hop on. Pressing her back against his, she laid over him and crossed her legs to condense her form, not that she really had to. Noah was large enough as it was. Keeping true to his boast, Noah easily continued his workout and chuckled when she clapped. "Is this how you guys usually work out?" 𝐷 noticed the different methods of training they used. Some were utilizing large tires, others were on the pole, up bars, and some were even jumping rope. It looked like an outside gym. "The actual training begins when we start fighting." 𝐷 stared at the trees thoughtfully. She never considered fighting as a way to train. It sounded rather dangerous. She remembered the day she babysat Haley and cut her finger. The little girl had been surprised she didn't heal sooner. She assumed they probably healed way faster than humans did, which would explain their willingness to engage in such harsh activities. "I hope I'm not getting too heavy. I don't want to wear you out before the real hard stuff begins." Noah snorted. "You're very light. Even with you on me, it's still an easy warm-up. Just making sure it isn't overly straining," she sang Ed. By now she had gathered a few more glances, but this did not make her uncomfortable. She was used to gathering male attention. Noah stopped momentarily, but she could already see the smile as he said the following words: "It's an honor, princess, on my back. Besides, you feel very soft." 𝐷 sighed, satisfied. "In that case, young servant, keep going," she joked, waving a permissive hand with an air of flair. 𝐷 closed her eyes and allowed the sun to warm her face. This felt so nice, laying on the back of a strong man, enjoying the breeze of the day, getting a nice-faced Anne. Could today get any better? Suddenly, she felt a presence overshadow her, blocking the sunlight. 𝐷 blinked in discontent and was faced with Sebastian's imposing figure. For a moment, she was arrested as she gazed at his smooth skin and clear-cut abs, which had grown longer over the past week, was slightly over his face, but did not hide the steely expression he currently wore. "Noah, quit playing around. 𝐷, get off his back," he ordered sternly. 𝐷 groaned. "Ugh, he only came to ruin all the fun." Sticking her tongue out, she met his eyes with her own. "Nope. Can't you see I'm getting a faced Anne?" she replied, flipping her hair defiantly. Sebastian remained unchanged. "Now," he hissed, his eyes darkening. Wow, was it just her or did it just get hotter out here? He looked so sexy staring down at her like that. Massey winked flirtatiously. "Why don't you pick me up yourself, big boy?" Below her, Noah chuckled, clearly amused. Sebastian rolled his eyes, seeming disturbed by her comment. "Stop being childish and get up." Enjoying his state of unease, she placed the back of her hand on her forehead like a damsel in distress. "Sebi, I am a crippled. Have some compassion. I need help," she insisted. There was no way she would leave the comfort of Noah's back and in her way back into the house. That sounded like so much work, at least when she was coming out here. The men were excellent motivators to get her going. "To my 𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐬 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." The house offered her nothing to entice her. Noah continued to do his push-ups. "After I'm done with this set, I'll carry her back inside, Captain," Sebastian growled. Before she knew it, Massey was up in the air, held bridal style by Sebastian. She smiled victoriously, placing her arms around his neck. "Wow, you have some really nice shoulders," she complimented, enjoying the feel of them as she explored every curve beneath fingertips. "Cease your mindless touching, woman." Sebastian glared down at her, but she merely giggled. He looked so adorable when he was angry. "I don't think I want to." Her fingers rose to his cheeks, where there was a shadow of stubble. She wondered what he would look like with a full-grown beard. Fed up with her wandering, Sebastian bit her index finger. Massey yelped and brought the injured digit to her chest. He didn't bite it hard enough to bleed, but it hurt her momentarily nonetheless. "What was that for?" "I have low tolerance for disobedience," he said darkly. Massey gaped. Is this how werewolves correct each other biting? They reached the rear door, and she was surprised at the care he took to place her down delicately, seeing as he was angry at her. Before releasing his hold on her waist, Sebastian's eyes sought hers. They were full of meaning. "Don't forget what I am." Massey knew he was referring to him being a werewolf, but she didn't see why he felt that part of him would deter her. She was about to respond, when a voice halted her. "There you are," James called. "I finished speaking with Kristen, so I can drop you off now. Are you ready?" "She is ready," Sebastian answered for her. He quickly released her waist and escaped through the back door. Disappointment tugged at her heart. She wished she could continue speaking with him. "To my agent extraordinaire, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "I guess we can head out now," Mercy said. Her disheartened hands took a hold of the crutches and followed James to the car. If Sebastian thought he could easily dissuade her with who he was, he had another thing coming. Sebastian was hers. It was only a matter of time before he realized she was his too.